The Holly came to our meeting in April.
It works for me.
To talk about general plan and
I had the leash in my hand, and the dog went one way, and my finger went the other way, and I broke it.
Do I have 25
fellow
seconds?
classmates.
Yes.
They were planning on
Let's see, we have Amy
these
here,
last 2
so.
weeks.
Sorry. How long ago?
Yesterday,
And
right as I was leaving Denver.
so they signed
So in Denver, that's why I don't
do more.
I drove home.
Now,
I turned around
Now,
a lot of the
right
gate.
side,
this
right?
last year was
I turned around a lot of the gate, and I had the leash in my hand, and he went bolting for a squirrel.
How long has it been since you got a hug on budget workshop day?
it's interesting.
Oh my God.
Did you hug Rich? I did. I sure did, because like, budget day is pretty important.
So should I reach out to him and just find out if he's,
Is it though?
interested in,
Because
This is my least favorite part of the job.
It's probably more acceptable for him to hug him than for me to hug him.
willing to do more,
yeah.
I'm sorry, your finger's
then
broken.
we probably wouldn't
It's
maybe
this lovely little crack.
somebody
The guy
to
goes,
coordinate.
well, at least it's not displaced.
That's
But
it,
if
you can just
that's all we can
keep it still for a
expect,
few weeks.
then we probably
And I'm
need,
sorry.
I feel like we need somebody even just like 5 hours a month
Understand.
to help make sure
Which one?
things are getting scheduled, we're getting
All of
permits.
them.
Because
Again,
we've been,
it's just hard, I mean, again, do you think we can rotate that?
and then 2
There
days,
she
I
is.
started out doing some
and then
things,
2 days
then
later, it's on.
You kind of took over more, I mean, again, the council members get paid for time.
Where's the
Some things, if we just made assignments like every other month, and said, okay,
I don't know.
you're
I
in charge
see.
of like an activity for this month. I just, again, when we
Maybe
did it
he's
before,
my thing.
where we had it every month, it just
There we
evolved
go.
into, well, let's
How are
do
you,
a
Amy?
service project, and then people got.
Long time no see.
I know.
So I don't know specifically what they want to do, and are they thinking once a month?
She's
I
so
was kind of
trendy with the
thinking,
big jean
every
jacket,
other
all
month, so it's not
bedazzled up
overwhelming.
from the bottom.
Yeah, we'll keep talking, sorry. I was taking a shit.
I was telling Teresa I should have, because I got a haircut. I'm all, you're like itchy. Oh. It's the worst. Does it happen when women cut their hair, or is the hair long enough that doesn't feel this way?
It's a time.
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it. Big crowd.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the first of our 2 budget workshops for the month of May 2025. We will first have an overview of general budgetary issues by Rich, including our lovely fraud risk assessment. And pay for performance, which I don't understand because we're not being paid for performance. No, I'm kidding.
We do,
Yeah.
we do.
Part of how is it?
So I'll cover just a couple items that the mayor covered, just very quickly. The high-level issues that we're dealing with this year's budget, flat sales tax projections, fairly similar to last year. The hope is that things kind of work their way out, and by next budget year, so that'd be fiscal year 2027, that we're back to sustainable increases of 3 to 5%. That'd be fantastic. And
Do you
history has
think
said
the
that's what-
sales tax issues are directly, I mean, is it because there are more places to shop and so we're not getting as many shoppers?
Sure. I think part of it is a little bit of the result, the end result of COVID. The government pumping money into the system, sales tax revenues going up quite a bit. Most of that has worked its way out, and then we had some inflation and possibly stagflation where costs were rising, but the overall economy was not. I think most of that is working its way out, and my hope is that rather than turning into a recession that would last a year and a half, something like that, that we just move into a period of almost the last year and a half has been fairly stagnant. Then maybe we're able to grow again. We'll see. Obviously, tariffs play a role into that. Some of the instability that we see. There is some contraction, though, locally, for sure. There are more choices, and so people are spreading their dollars over more choices, but we are seeing some contraction. Again, I do think that's possibly what we'll see is just a pause for a while, and then hopefully some steady growth from there. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Flat is always better than down.
Yeah.
I'll take flat over that any day.
And hopefully most of the effects of inflation have worked their way through the system. We'll still see some, but hopefully most of those have worked their way through, and now we can see some steady growth with low inflation. That'd be fantastic.
Okay.
That's the hope. We are proposing a 3% property tax increase. I will cover that in just a minute. In the budget is 1 FTE for the Parks and Rec Department, although it's not necessarily a new position. It's moving the position from the Recreation Center to the general fund in the Parks area. There are 2 FTEs in the EMS fund. This is just simply due to increased calls for service. We'll see that over time as that fund can support itself. Again, it is an enterprise fund. It does survive on the charges for services that we collect.
So is it able to do any of that now, or are we still subsidizing that?
We do subsidize it somewhat because it is part of our fire department. It's somewhat difficult to delineate exactly where that is.
But it's
The building
personnel?
costs are all in the fire department, but
It's personnel?
operationally,
Operationally, it's holding its own?
it is.
Okay.
And we continue to watch it because it's scary. 55% bad debt. I know that there are different ways to describe the money we do not collect versus the money we bill, but we're at about 45% collections, and we do watch that very carefully. 9.9% healthcare increase. That's welcome news from 29% to 15%, but it's also completely and utterly unsustainable. 10% increase year over year, over a 29% increase, over a 15, over a 7. That is the recipe for disaster. We're not unlike many other places, but healthcare, we have to get a handle on healthcare. That's more of a national and possibly a statewide issue, but we've been calling this out for 15, 20 years. It used to be that budget was negligible. Now it's incredibly sizable.
Yeah, every year.
Paying for healthcare. It's very difficult. Not to mention the fact that this is a high deductible health plan where the first 4,000 to 8,000 are borne by the employee and their family. That's very, very tough. So anyway, I'm not telling you something you don't already know.
And
Just pointing out.
we're fully funded for insurance, not self-funded, correct?
We are fully funded. As soon as we have a self-funded model that makes sense, we will switch. We're right in that area where it could go either way. We do bid it out every year. We do look at it carefully.
Okay.
Lastly is the pay for performance, which is on our list. It's a 4% pay for performance. However, the focus is pushing most of that to our base, some of our lower paid employee positions, stabilizing those based on where we come from with inflation. It is pay for performance, which means we're trying to reward performance. So some may get more, some may get less based on their performance. But there's also a targeted amount for employees. We do think this is the right thing to do this year. It does pose a concern for if you're pushing salaries or pushing some of our funding to the bottom, we can have some issues at the management level, but we will deal with those as we go. Now we'll move into some of the handouts I've given you. I don't have these to display, unfortunately. These are checklists that I use to kind of see where we're going. CIP scorecard is the first one. This is where I track how much we are spending in our major funds for capital. I have a targeted amount that would be somewhat sustainable. That is more art than science. There is no perfect answer exactly how much we should put into our roads in order to have good roads and infrastructure. However, we've made an estimate there, and then we've tracked that against how much we're putting toward those services. Less important than where we stand against the sustainable level, which is a guesstimate at best, is where are we in relation to where we've been. So I have multiple years worth of history there going back to 2013. I think I even have more history than that if I go back prior to that. And you can see we're making sizable and significant progress in most of our areas. Those areas where we're not making significant progress are either a brand new fund we're still trying to figure out, like EMS, or in the electric department, and environmental, where things have changed over time. It also has to do with how we categorize capital versus maintenance. We are putting sizable amounts toward maintenance in both electric and environmental, more so in electric. And so it just depends whether we categorize it as capital or whether it's maintaining something that is already capitalized. So it's just an accounting technicality, but I do think most of our funds showed very great progress. It's something we should be proud of. But that targeted sustainable figure is not something we should completely discount either. Meaning, if we have resources in the future, this is an obligation that already exists to maintain our infrastructure, our roads, water lines that are underneath the roads, sewer lines as well. And we're doing some great things right now, and you can see it happening across the city. Some people don't think it's so great when you're trying to get across it, but it's great progress in replacing our infrastructure. It's important to remember that that infrastructure will fail at some point. And it's easy to say, and it's easy to defer it 1 year. Because will it last 1 year? Most likely it will. Will it last 2? Probably.
Not in my lifetime.
Will it last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20? Probably not. But I don't know where in that place it will start to fail. So it's important that we watch how we're funding these capital investments, how much we're putting toward it, and that we continually add to it. If we don't, there will be a time when it fails, and there will be a time when we don't have funds to go toward it. I think we're acting very responsibly. We're building this. We continue to build it. As recessions come and go, it may decline a little bit, but it's important that we replenish those capital reserves, those amounts going toward capital, and we continue to build those over time. It's easy to listen to a squeaky wheel, address the squeaky wheel, ignore capital infrastructure, and over time we'll get ourselves in a pickle. We're doing well. Second thing that I like to track is our fund reserve policy and where we stand. This is the other handout, and I apologize again, I should have it up here. Just the other handout by fund. The council adopted target fund balances that we want to hold in order to operate efficiently, in order to not have to worry and be concerned about if we have money just to simply operate. It costs a lot of money to run the city. It costs $2 to $3 million to buy power that we sell every month. That means we have to have $2 to $3 million at least in reserves in order to have money to meet that obligation. In addition, our payroll costs are fairly significant. When you look at the budget, divide that by 26, that's how much we pay out every 2 weeks to our employees, which is an obligation and something we have to keep in mind. It's important that we have these target reserves. The great thing is we're meeting these target reserves in most of our funds, then it's fine if we drop below the target reserve in one fund or two funds in order to, let's say, meet some capital objective like we have in the electric fund right now. You can see that we're dropping a little bit lower than we would like, but that's something that we've planned out, and that's okay because we have reserves in other funds. Now, if we drain our reserves in several funds, then we start getting into dangerous territory. Great thing is we're meeting our obligations. The council adopted target levels for reserves in almost every single fund. We're also putting away capital for future capital projects. However, we don't have enough for some of the more significant capital projects that we're thinking of. That is the Public Works building. We're still building toward that. I believe it's possible, but we're going to have to keep our eye on the prize in order to make that happen the next year or two. Okay, now I'll hit some of the required things that we have to discuss or we have to workshop. The first is the fraud risk assessment that I have here. This is a required workshop item required by the state of Utah, how we're doing in relation to a fraud risk assessment that they have developed. We're doing fantastic. You can see we're getting all the required points. According to this risk assessment, in all but two categories, and I think it's just fine. It puts us at right between the very low and low level of risk, again, according to this risk assessment. We are concerned about risk. We talk about it all the time in our audit committee. And we try to do the best we can in order to, the best job we can in order to avoid fraud. We have a fraud hotline, which I believe is one of these categories.
So,
Yeah, number 7.
Very good. And we are trying to avoid fraud.
so
The
we're-
ones we don't have, sorry, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
4 and 5 there
Yeah,
seem like easy things to do.
5 is not. Oh, actually, 5 is something easy, and we could do it. Most of you have already done it. We just have to focus on that a little bit. 4 is super hard and not worth our effort.
To have
And you
all the
don't-
employees sign it?
And you don't want to
Every
have
year.
100.
Yeah.
You don't want to have all the points.
Yeah, you,
Why not?
you don't want to be a nerd.
You don't want to have all the points.
We counted all the points.
You don't
I just feel like they seem like they wouldn't be. I mean, maybe 4. If
Four.
they're-
One employee that's a new employee that hasn't signed it, one employee turnover. Trying to track that down is a nightmare.
But 5 would literally be us sitting up here.
Yeah.
But I thought we mostly did that with our annual training.
You mostly did, there's one of you who still needs to do it.
Is that me?
No,
Have I done it?
Is it me?
it is you. But that's okay.
It seems really easy to get this done now, doesn't it?
Really easy.
It's me.
It's once every 4 years,
Yeah.
Well,
and it's not a big deal.
I have done so
I know it's
many.
not a big deal. It just seems like low-hanging fruit.
It is.
I've done
And we
so
we
much
could
of
try
that.
to.
So maybe in January when we, after elections and have a
Well,
new
we could,
group of elected
I've
officials.
done so much of
we could
that
have the
training
elected
online. I
officials
feel
do
like
it and
I've
put a
done.
5 up there.
Well, and you have to do it for multiple
Then we have at
entities.
least
and
Yes,
so
I do.
It's a mess, and you can't double count them. You have to do all of it.
Oh, I have to do it separately for each thing?
Oh, see, I thought I told Bragg, I've done it. So maybe I misreported to Bragg because I'm on the Bragg board and we
you're
had to
good.
do it.
Oh,
for brag.
Yeah, and I assumed the one the training I had done was for any governmental entity.
Yeah, I did all kinds of online training
we
because
could try.
It just feels easy to make Ginny do it and be done with it. Personally.
And then
I
Mike,
mean, I don't have to do
Mike will
anything
be
besides-
okay because we have an A minus
Yeah,
instead
there
of
we
a
go.
B plus.
Yeah, there we
So
go.
he'll be okay.
We could get
Doesn't the
all the
zero-
elected officials to do
Like,
it in writing, because that's like fairly important.
We'll work on that one.
Last year we did.
It's not that big a deal. It's just
Did that, which one?
30 minutes of your life you'll never get back.
Yeah.
It's just so close.
no, it's 60 minutes because I already did it once.
That's true. And it's terrible.
Chop, chop.
Yeah, if you have the other one, give me a copy and I'll hold that and just try to count it, but it's.
Okay.
So that is the fraud risk assessment. Any other questions, comments, concerns? We will have, let's
I was gonna
see.
say, for like the target reserves, which ones would you like to focus on the most in the future? I mean, which ones do we need to bump up a little bit?
Electric.
Electric. Well, that's where all our expenses are with the Canyon project and with the diesel engines. Yeah,
And remember,
gotcha.
we did have really
We had really
good
good
reserves,
really good
and that's
reserves,
why
yeah.
we've been able to do some of these capital projects.
Right.
And then we'll continue to build back up. But they've been spent for really worthwhile infrastructure
Yeah.
They
projects.
really have.
Well-
It was wise.
That's kind of what they're there for.
Right.
Yeah.
The loan that they gave to the library will also go back to their reserve.
Yes, that will.
So as it's paid.
Is electric your only major concern?
Electric, and then our sewer treatment 520 fund is probably my next concern, and then environmental, and it's just because we have a whole bunch of things we need to get done
With the landfill.
and not enough money to do all of them at the same time. However, if we kind of stagger those, we will be okay. It's just a
So
lot
how does
coming
the
to us.
other, they're putting in that fourth, whatever you call it?
Bioreactor.
Is a bioreactor?
Bioreactor, yeah.
Is that included in their budget documentation, or is that something separate that they're getting a grant for? Is it?
We don't have, I think we have the magnetide, what do we call it? Enhancement that we're doing now. That portion is in there. I think it's a $5 million grant and like $1 million of our funds.
Okay.
That is happening now. And then we'll have the bioreactor 4, which the guesstimates are high. We don't have enough to do it. And so the concern is, do we borrow from another fund? Do we independently bond? We already have 100 million in bonds outstanding. There's just some concerns how we get this next stage done. We'll get it done, but if we can stagger some of these things, the individual funds can use another fund that's healthy as a crutch. Because at the end of the day, we're one big city. It's just we can't steal money from each other.
Okay, permanently.
Permanently. You can definitely borrow short-term, and because another fund has adequate fund balance, we can take on a little more risk in another fund.
Okay.
That's appropriate, and we should do that.
We did that with the library,
Just
right?
not to the extreme.
Right, and we still have some to pay back.
How much do we have left in the library to pay back?
1.8 million, we'll pay back a lot of that. You can see that's the second line item. It has a negative reserve of 652,000. It's only because it's a governmental fund that it looks this way. It actually has cash reserves that meet its necessary reserves. It just has this obligation to pay back a loan.
Okay.
In all of the other funds, when you have an obligation to pay back a loan, you show the asset and the obligation and they offset. Not in the governmental fund, so it just looks funny.
Okay.
But we're going to be okay. Okay, we'll bring up Amory to discuss workshop items A and B, and then I'll take C and D.
We'll give Rich a break, so I can go ahead and speak. So what these are is, this first one is a resolution that we do bring to the council every budget year. The resolution is in regards to our retirement contributions that we make on behalf of our employees. And so as you can read in this, we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 members. Tier 1 members are those that were hired certified eligible for retirement before July of 2011. That's when the URS did change their retirement systems. Those that were hired after became your Tier 2 members. And with this, so we've adopted that Tier 1 members, we pick up all required contributions for them. But with Tier 2 members, they did change the retirement to where there is an employee and an employer portion. And so the employee could have to help pick up retirement contributions depending on how well those funds are funded. And this is just to propose that Tier 2 members are responsible for the employee contributions for the next budget year.
How many Tier 1 employees do we have? Do you know what the percentage is? Not the exact number.
You're getting less than 50%, I would say, because this was 2011, so we're going on 14, 15 years. I would say a number of our Tier 1s are retiring, and I would say less than 50 are Tier 1s, I do believe.
Okay.
I don't know, but I could get that figure for you.
50%.
Less than
Or
50.
50 people.
Less than 50% of our employees.
50 people or 50%?
50%. So we have 440 or 439 full-time employees, so.
Okay.
Any other questions on the resolution?
Nope.
Okay. The next one is the adoption. It's an ordinance that we do have to bring to council as well during the budget time. It's for adopting salary schedules for elected officials as well as our municipal officers. So elected officials, this is one that we have brought to you guys every year. It's where we propose what we would want to do for our council members for the budget year as well as for our mayor. We are proposing to have the council members go up to $20,152.43, the $300 vehicle allowance, and then the mayor would go up to $124,693.40 with a $6,000 vehicle allowance. Again, we propose these because what we try to do is we try to make it attractive and marketable because we want qualified individuals to run for council. A lot of members want to just do it as a service. Some have realized they didn't get paid for it, but we wanted to make it, again, attractive to get qualified people to run for these positions.
Yes, for years and years, Herm was the one who would say, no pay raise.
You guys did it, I think, 10 years. It was about a 10-year span you guys didn't give yourself a raise.
Are we getting closer to being comparable with other municipalities?
Do we know what other?
It was pretty deficient.
You're
when we
still
first
pretty
started.
low, I'll be honest, because even some other municipalities provide benefits where we don't. we just do an annual wage for you guys. So honestly, you guys are still, I think, in my mind, a little behind. I could get numbers, but again, we want to make this attractive to get people to want to fill this
County
position.
council is much higher than we are they not?
Cache County, yeah. Yeah.
And
For
do
the
you,
public hearing, will you bring those numbers on
Yeah.
comparable cities in Cache County? And
That's good.
and
I think it's good
also,
photo
Good
house.
suggestion, yeah.
would
Well,
you give us a percentage on those raises
That
as
was my
well?
next question, is what's it?
So
It's-
going from, because you guys are currently at the 19,112.43 to the 20, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think it's about 5.
5%.
Do you have that?
I mean, our average salary increase
I'd
was
say it's gonna be right around
4%.
We tried to target it at what some of the employees who are paid in that range would get. So
It's right around that
it's a
4%.
guesstimate.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the 43 cents that's important.
It is.
It's going,
I always
Because I'm going to spend that all in one place.
that's going into
The
Amy's
43 cents you can't even
retirement
spend
fund, yeah.
anymore.
And really, rather
That's
than
43
making it competitive, our goal is to make it so that the sacrifice is somewhat justifiable. So many people have so many other things you could be doing. We can never make it worth your time, but we can maybe make the sacrifices you're making a little bit more justifiable to your family, friends, and neighbors that you're.
I'm pretty sure it was suggested in the last council meeting that we don't make any sacrifices for this.
Yeah. And if we paid you hourly, it'd be about 25 cents an hour.
Yep, that's about right.
I did the calculations last year online, and it was
You'd
under,
make more
it was
than
under
$3
$3 an hour.
Yeah, for the time that you put in. Yeah, I believe it.
I told myself I wouldn't track it ever again, because I
That-
told my wife that
that
was
first-
a mistake.
The first year is the wrong year to track it because you put so much time in.
This year I'm
to get
making
caught up.
$5.
Yeah, you're making
Oh,
$5.
God, you're not working hard enough.
Since the one who wasn't here last week.
I was here.
I appreciate your efforts to get us comparable with other cities and to make it an attractive option for someone who wants to run, to compensate them for the time that they put in. Because we put in a lot of time that is not here to do what we do. And it pulls me from my work, it pulls Mike from his work, it pulls Jeannie, I mean,
I don't have any other
you
work.
have work still.
But I
You
think
have to walk your dog and other
I
stuff.
look at people like Ernesto, and I think it's to some extent a bigger sacrifice for someone
yeah.
who has like a 9-to-5 job to be able to make this work.
And kids,
And well,
and family.
kid, but
Or kid.
I don't know. It does have to be.
Yeah,
That's my time's not valuable. Even though I work 25 hours a week and do other things,
Yeah,
but that's
no,
okay.
No.
I don't know. I just think it's really hard when you have a boss
It is.
and a regular schedule.
It is
to try
more
to make it work.
difficult.
It is.
We're fortunate that we only have one boss instead of multiple.
Is your wife also your boss?
Yes, absolutely. So.
And this
How
is
about
a super
this-
good year to make the adjustment.
Get
because
looks
you're making
also.
it to the next council.
Right.
How about the staff positions that are listed?
So with these, so any other questions on the elected? So the other part to this ordinance is also for our municipal officers. So this came through last year, Senate Bill 91, where we had to propose what our municipal officers were going to be making. So these are the proposed ranges of what our officers would be making for this next budget year.
Which one I went through this one was it?
What's changed?
We do have the judge in here, but that is set by the state. We have
That's-
no control of that.
That's the asterisk there.
And that's a minimum and a max, no, it's within the range still.
Yeah.
Are any of them changing?
Gal, it's not a public
They're all
hearing, it's
changing.
just a workshop. Sorry.
I just have
They're all
another
changing.
question on the treasurer.
Well, you'll have to ask it when we have the public hearing.
You just might want to look at it, correct?
Oh. Yeah, that one, I think I need to look at the
The proposed.
beginning,
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
opening that
Thank
one
you.
up.
Never mind, yeah, that's a good
Just a-
call. I will look at
Just a
it.
typo.
I think there was another one that was very
Yeah, there's just a typo in there. So.
We'll kind of review them.
It's the number 52,000 limit proposed cost. What's that? Electric resource manager?
Oh, that could be it, yeah. That one right
Where's
there.
that one?
I'm sorry to speak out of turn, but it was a number.
No, it's a good.
Nope,
one.
that's
It was
good.
a good out of turn.
That's good, that's good.
But the current
That helps
proposed
me
are
to
the same.
fix my mistake.
This one might be right.
I'd say that one might be right because the proposed and
The
current are the
electric
same.
resource manager, it's just a large
It's
range.
just
It's
a
a large
large range, yeah.
I'll check on it.
And this law came out and we tried to follow it. It's very specific. You read the law and you think you know what you're supposed to do, it's not. Because apparently this is what everybody's doing, so that's why we've switched to it. Plus,
Because last year we had the actual amount
Yep.
they were paid
Yep.
on here, yeah.
And that made it harder for departments too, because they had to figure out if raises were going to be approved, what those raises were in advance before anybody
Right.
else. And it just makes it much easier if they can do it all together if raises are approved. So,
Yep.
yeah, this is a much better approach, as we found other cities have done.
Perfect.
Okay. If you're ready to proceed, also required, this is our notice for our public hearing for transfers. As you're aware, transfers is a part of the Logan City budget, has been for many, 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 many years. Many cities within Utah that have an electric utility in particular use transfers in order to fund their general fund operations, because utilities historically operate using dividends to their shareholders. Well, this is the dividend to our shareholders, the citizens of Logan. Because we have transfers, our property tax can remain lower, and that's a good thing, because property tax only applies to taxable entities. Well, we estimate somewhere between 50 to 60% of our property is non-taxable in the city of Logan. What that would do is shift a considerable burden to those who are paying taxes, as opposed to those who are also enjoying our services but not paying property taxes. Well, they do pay their electric bill, their water bill, and some of those types of things. So while it's not the ideal way to fund a city, and if I were starting a brand new city with very little non-taxable property, I wouldn't think this is a great way to finance it. The city of Logan, where we have up to 60% possibly that's non-taxable, I think this is a very appropriate way to spread the tax burden.
So that's university, churches, federal government, county government.
City.
Local
All of
government,
those.
Parks.
nonprofit organizations, the food bank, CAPSA.
Yep. It is a
I mean, it's
fee in lieu of tax to a certain extent, and it helps fund our city, and I think equates or equalizes the burden across many people who enjoy the services that we provide. So one other thing that I have, and they are substantial amounts. If you look at those amounts, $1 million from water and sewer, 3.9 from the electric fund, but these are not haphazard. These are set by council ordinance or council resolution, and we follow that resolution. They are also contemplated as we pass rates, as we contemplate future capital. These are all built into those assumptions. And so as long as they are very closely monitored, I think it's a good thing for us. Now, I have noticed down below something a little unusual, at least in terms of transfers. It's the building of the Public Works building.
Yeah.
The only reason I've noticed this is because it will satisfy the statutory requirement should we get down the road and have the ability to proceed with a Public Works building. The thought is now that we build a Public Works building, the electric building, which is growing too small for them as we speak, would be occupied by our Parks and Rec department. The electric department would buy the much larger Public Works building, the existing Public Works building, and then we build a larger Public Works building that would house all of Public Works. This would strengthen all of those departments, but it comes with the additional cost of approximately $10 million, the difference between the existing electric building and the much larger Public Works building. So we're noticing it here. If we're able to build that building, we'll be coming back to council to appropriate funds, including this transfer for 10 million or whatever the number is that we determine. Obviously, can't be more than that, but this satisfies the noticing requirements.
But if we decide to bond or something like that, there's a whole nother process, correct?
That would be a whole other process.
Okay.
At least the transfer would, because even if we bond, the way we get the money from the electric department would be through a transfer. It's an accounting mechanism only. It doesn't make any sense, but it does fall in the exact same categories of transfer. And rather than get permission from the state to violate their code or the state auditor's office, I said, let's just notice it and we're covered.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Last item, and then I promise I'm really done, is just the property tax increase. We're just talking about it here. The idea is to raise property taxes for the library and the general fund by 3%. This isn't 3% of their overall bill. This is 3% of the portion that relates to Logan City, which is approximately 16% of their bill. So it's 3% of 16%. We're talking more like 1% of their overall property tax bill. Problem is, as you know, the property tax law is meant to control the total amount the city of Logan receives, not the amount individual property taxpayers might pay. And so there are swings as property is reevaluated, and there's nothing we can do to avoid that. That is a Cache County function and a state of Utah function. And how they reassess does affect how much individual property taxpayers pay. However, the city of Logan, if this is adopted as we go through the budget process and the truth and taxation process, which is a separate hearing, if it's adopted, we would increase our property tax. We're bringing in by 3% approximately. We won't have final numbers until June 8th, so I can't give you the official percentage, but it is approximately 3%. The idea again is small increases year over year, avoid large increases like 20%, like what Cache County proposed
Just
last
had to
year.
do, yeah.
Okay.
And that is all, unless you have any questions.
I'm assuming that 3% would be roughly equal in actual dollar amount to the 3% last year that we did.
It would.
Up in that $80,000 to $90,000 range.
Yeah, I flagged it in your proposed budgets, but that's approximately what it is. And once we get the results back, we'll narrow those down, but it should be a pretty good estimate.
Okay.
Okay, we will move now to the workshop presentations by department. Russ, you get to go first.
I have promised my colleagues the peanut gallery back here
The
is
peanut gallery.
motivating me to stay on task.
Okay.
So that's my job. I only have 24 slides to go through.
Good job. But you have 3 funds that you have to talk about, so.
Well, speaking of such, as part of our budget highlights, with the time that I have, 3 things I just wanted to point out with you in regards to the proposed budget. First is regarding the recreation center. We have signed a memorandum of understanding and a lease agreement with the Logan City School District to transfer our share of interest, our ownership, from June 30th to July 1st, the start of the new fiscal year, to the school district, so that they will take full ownership of the rec center. And Rich had made made reference to this earlier. The full-time custodian at the rec center will transfer to the Parks Division staff and will become one of their staffs, and so that we'll be able to retain what we have currently as our staffing needs with the transfer of that position.
So the position transfers to Logan City, but we're keeping the person.
We're keeping the person.
Okay, thank you.
Was this person previously employed by the school district then?
He was funded in
Funded by
the
the
joint
school.
fund.
Okay.
Public use of the rec center will then shift to evenings and Saturday access under the 3-year lease arrangement that we have with the school district. On the cemetery plan, master plan, we continue to work on that. One of our primary items that we're working on is improvements to the existing irrigation system to make that more efficient than the current practice that we have in place. It also includes a columbarium and cremation garden plan, and also addressing the current restroom situations that we have at the cemetery, and dedicated office space for patrons. And then in the golf course.
Dedicated office space for patrons.
So right now, what we have.
Dedicated office space for cemetery employees, right?
Yes.
To meet with patrons, though.
You did catch that one. I caught that one as well here, and I thought I'd just go through it quickly and move on. No big deal.
Sorry.
Jeannie.
The new restrooms, when we build them, we need to write up like big public announcement.
For our veterans that come
Yes,
into the.
for the veterans that come and spend hours at the cemetery.
Yes.
So, okay, go on, sorry.
On the golf course improvements, we will in this fiscal year, before it's over with, be looking at a cart lease replacement. We're in the last year of the current lease that we're on right
They're
now.
usually 3 years or 5?
4 years.
4? Okay.
Right in between.
And then long-term irrigation system upgrades on a course that's, I have the number in my head, since '92. It's showing evidence of stress in areas that would be relative to age. Okay, moving on, projects for the upcoming year. 4 particular areas that we'll be looking at. One is in the outdoor recreation complex. This is the area south of the landfill along 200 south between about 1350 west and 1900 west. These include the completion of the Mapleview Neighborhood Park, which is more towards the east end of 200 south and about 1350 west. The dog park at 1900 west. We're looking at some infrastructure things at this point in time that need to be addressed for that facility. And then the disc golf course. We're working with a group that's helping us design the course layout as we speak, in fact. Willow Park Sports Complex, we have pavement in the interior where the 4 backstops come together in the middle that need to be replaced, and we're looking at getting that work done by the end of the paving season, which is usually in the fall. And then trail construction work, we have the trail bridge that will cross the Logan River at Tracker Park and span over to the conservation easement area that is on the north side of the river. And then our plans are to expand or extend that trail first to downstream to the northwest, and then ultimately coming back towards 10th West thereafter. And then also 1800 South Trail. We've had some difficulty in getting this started because we weren't entirely geared up staff-wise, but we're in a position now where we've had a really good turnout for summer help, and that's going to free us up to get a lot of things done this summer. And so that's good news to hear, because we're usually stretched with the personnel that we have to get projects done. And so that, for me, it's music to my ears, because this project here, we've been on hold with it for quite some time. And then finally, the golf course clubhouse. We've got a walkway on the west side of the clubhouse that needs to be replaced, and we're looking at doing those repairs in this coming fiscal year.
Russ,
Yes.
can you, I'm not familiar with the 1800 South Trail project. Can you give me like a 30-second?
1800
South.
1800 South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we doing down there?
Yeah, so subdivisions, I don't know if this will help you. On 1800 South, this is probably about 1400 West. There is the Logan River Estates, the trailer subdivision, mobile home subdivision that's to the north. East of that subdivision is a dirt trail that we have that comes out to 1800 South. That dirt trail connects to the Logan River Trail to the north. Between Logan River Estates and the subdivision that's to the north of, to the east of that trail.
And didn't they dedicate
Springs.
property?
Springs
Yeah.
subdivision.
Yeah,
And the
it's
way-
between the, so is it just going to run between the Springs and the mobile home park?
It is.
Oh.
What we're doing there is widening that dirt path so that bicycles can get down that trail corridor a lot easier than they can right now. And we had to secure that easement with Logan River Estates, and they're the ones that are granting us the additional 4 feet so that we can widen that trail.
Are you going to concrete it?
You know, that's a good question. What comes up all the time when we talk about it is the footings for the brick wall for the Springs subdivision is right at the surface. And we're concerned about wanting to not compromise those columns or the footings. And so we may have to go, there's been some discussion about going with recycled asphalt tailings and compacting that. What we'd really like to do is concrete because we don't want the weeds growing back in that corridor, which we always have every year. So finding some other kind of impervious surface would work better, but we've got to pay attention to the integrity or the construction of the brick wall. We don't
Okay.
wanna
Okay.
Thank you for the detour.
compromise that. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You bet. And then finally, I think this is my last slide.
Oh, I thought you had 24.
Well, yeah, that was just to get your attention. Is the RAPS proposals that were submitted to the county. This is, of course, the RAPS funded or county funded recreation proposals, 4 of which were sent to the county, and we hope to hear from them this month. Our top ranking one was to replace the 2 boilers for the leisure pool at the aquatic center. And then the second one is is a match actually for the Main Street Ped Bike Underpass, which I understand has been awarded to a contractor. Number 3 is the disc golf course pavilion and picnic tables at the outdoor recreation complex, and then likewise the restroom at that same location. With that, I'm sure I'm coming up close on my allotted time, but I would be happy, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
I think we may have interrupted you in the middle anyway.
Sorry.
It's all right. That means we don't end up with questions at the end. Anybody? Thanks, Russ.
Okay.
Thank you, Russ.
Nate, you're up next.
Sounds like the beat in Lost. Do you remember that show? Oh, yeah. Had a high school math teacher that gave us extra credit if we watched it. She'd have a quiz every week.
That's
You got extra credit for watching TV.
She was the teacher, not me. Unfortunately.
I was the willing student. Willing to watch TV.
I would miss the extra credit because my mom was opposed.
Oh, I thought he was timing himself. Good job.
It's good to see you on time.
we can make sure you don't if you'd like.
So what kind of siren is going to go off? Is it going to like be like the?
See, here we go.
Okay, you ready?
We're
I think I'm ready. All right. Okay, well, let's go through the fire department. I'm just going to get right into a quick review of our staffing in the department here at Logan Fire. Currently 70 personnel, 58 EMS suppression personnel, which gives us 19 per battalion. We have 3 battalions here in Logan. We have 1 EMS full-time position. If you recall, last budget year in 24-25, we took our part-time program, which we had kind of set a sunset with that program after working hard for a few years, rolled that money into 1 full-timer that could impact all 3 of our battalions, and we found that to be, it's been super positive. So we're super grateful for that move. It's been a good impact for the department. We have our 3 battalion chiefs that work the 48-hour shift with the covering the 4 stations. 5 in admin, myself with 2 assistant chiefs, our training chief and our admin assistant, Jelaine Hatch. And of course, in our fire prevention bureau, we have a fire assistant chief, Craig Humphreys, with our 2 deputy fire marshals, and then another one of our new people, Arian Bingham, our part-time receptionist. So just quick statistics, just to kind of look at this year compared to the previous year. We've actually had some pretty significant growth, 7.64% in overall call volume. Fire-related calls, 1,344 in 2024, with EMS being 5,105 of the total incidents there, the 6424. Sometimes people are curious of all those EMS calls. I like to kind of monitor that. 3,647 of those EMS calls were actually transported to the hospital. I believe that's right around 71% of our calls actually get transported. And probably the big number there, the 12,052 unit responses. That count includes, as you know, we respond typically in tandem with an engine and a rescue to keep that engine available after they're done with the medical call for the next call. And so, yeah, a little bit of a jump there. I think our increase last year was a little less than this. I think it was only like about 2%. This year, it jumped up a little bit higher.
Do those transports include transports out of the valley as well?
Oh, you were listening to my head.
They do.
Is that gone down or is that still?
That stayed pretty close. That's right around, Logan City did around 900 of those, about 950 of those in 2024. As you know, Smithfield helped share in that. So I believe overall we were right around 1,150 interfacilities this last year. So it was up some. Yeah. So let me just talk a little bit about the budget. Line 140, our fire budget this year. As Rich has already mentioned, that's staying pretty steady. The increase we'll see there will be from raises and the cost of benefits. We do have a 3% increase going up in the North Logan station operation budget. That's just per contract. It goes up that much each year. And right, the big jump in our 590, our emergency medical services fund. I believe that budget last year was around $4.8 million. It's $59,41,972 this year. I'll take you through why that is this year. And I think, as Rich already mentioned, it is an enterprise fund. The funds stay in that account for our operational costs, and it comes from the ambulance billing revenues and the EMS theme grants. Currently, we have 27 of our line EMS suppression people in that budget, actually 25, and we have 2 chiefs in that budget as well. Our training chief and our EMS assistant chief is in this fund.
So the new disaster person that was hired, they are not with
Emergency
you?
Public Works.
management.
They're public works, okay. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. So just a few things, what can Logan bring to the table in terms of the fire department? Just to kind of go over a few of our other revenues that we generate outside of the general fund and using taxes. Obviously, our North Logan budget is for 2026 will be the $1,093,000 this year. Providence is scheduled to be at 543, River Heights 148. Cache County, we have, obviously we cover Logan Canyon and some of the unincorporated areas around us. That contract's $106,000. Not a lot in standbys, but you know, we generate some with $5,000 there. Our medical standbys, rodeos, things of that nature, about $32,000. Wildland deployments were a busy season last year. They were actually really good for us last year. We netted $192,000 in revenue from our deployments after we paid for all costs after that. So that was a great year for the wildland program. I talked quite a bit about the mental health last year for first responders, Utah House Bill 23, which is now Utah, law. We were successful in getting a second grant of the $162,875. The grant was actually in the 200s. We went ahead and split that with law enforcement. I think they received around $78,000, I believe. But probably some real good positive things to mention about that would be, last year we were probably utilizing around 11,000 monthly. That's come back to about 7,000 to 8,000 on average monthly. We aggressively, with the help of HR, Andrew's done a phenomenal job in helping onboard some of our vetted clinicians. So clinicians we were seeing, our people were seeing, were actually going to the EAP now for spouses and their children. So that's actually helped our budget quite a bit. So that's been a really successful step for us. So we're excited about that. EMS grants last year, or it looks like we'll be around 77,000 in grants, and then a small wildland grant of 9,900. So, all in all, I think 1.8 million or so that comes in other revenue for us to help with our budget. So just to kind of break down our budget, like I said, fire budget's pretty flat this year. We're grateful and appreciate the increases that are there. That fire budget reflects those, as well as the 3% increase in the North Logan station operations line of that. So, and those are, like I said, those are just for terms of the service contract. So just wanted to kind of highlight the emergency medical services account. So a couple of things to probably piggyback on some of the things that Rich had mentioned. So we had a pretty unique thing happen last year. Finally, July 2024, the legislature finally bumped up the mileage reimbursement and the state base rate billable that's allowed to be billed through the ambulance, and that had been a work in progress for some time. And so in just that 1 year's time, it showed immediate change in our budget in terms of how it was trending. To date, with almost a year behind us now, so what are we coming up on June? So it'll have been 11 months with those new rates. Our revenues are actually up 15%, which in terms of numbers for that account is right around $750,000 in the plus. So that was a good move because things had gotten fairly flat there. So that was actually a super positive thing for that account. So we're happy to see that, and obviously we're cautious. As Rich had mentioned, typically with billings, Medicare and Medicaid require what they call their discount is how it's put. So truly we shoot for the 42 to 45% on our collection, which is better. I mean, the nationwide trend is typically that, looking at their survey last year, it's about 37%. Nationally. So we actually do a little bit better here with our collection. Not a ton better, but better. The other big thing in the budget this year is the $750,000, which we've identified every 10 years we need to update our cardiac monitors. We have 14 of those in our system, one on every fire engine and one on every ambulance. And obviously it's difficult to buy them intermittently because interoperability and technologies change, so the patches we put on people, the equipment that's used along with the cardiac monitor, unfortunately we have to keep that consistent. And so, as you know, we might have an ambulance from Station 72 working with an engine from Station 70 just based on our response profile. So we wish we didn't have to do them all at once, but unfortunately the nature of the work requires that. The good news was, the revenues were looking good in this account, and working with finance, we felt like, hey, we held off this year. We were going to do it in 2025. figured let's wait just a little bit longer and we'll move it into this next budget. So that is a one-time in that budget that probably throws that number off, I would say, a little bit. And obviously, we've worked with Rich to start putting money away because in 8 or 10 years, that'll have to happen again. So that's being done. So that's good. And it was also mentioned in the mayor's address and with Rich, we are proposing those 2 additional people to kind of go back to the one person. That was a strategy in seeing how much of an impact they could possibly give our downtown station because of the load of calls that they do. And it had an immediate impact with that one new person that was working peak time. So as we looked at that in terms of looking forward with the staffing needs of that station, adding those 2 more people would give us that person all the time downtown to help supplement the staffing on the big rigs, which unfortunately that was the one area we did lose points on with our ISO rating. That's probably one of the main reasons we actually missed out on ISO 1 is because of the staffing of our truck. So this is a win-win. It helps us with our EMS calls. It keeps the people on the bigger apparatus. And so in looking forward, this will be, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but having 1 more person per shift downtown is significant for our system. So that's where that would come from. And then just to kind of wrap up here, just kind of wanted to go over maybe just some forecasting long-term for the council with nothing more than education to be thinking ahead because we've got, obviously there's time, but as we've talked about in council in the past, Logan City is going vertical, right? We're moving up because we've run out of space. And it's just important to share with you some of the facts that come with that in terms of being able to provide suppression and EMS protection. So NFPA 1710, which is our National Fire Protection Association standard for staffing career fire departments, Logan City historically has been what we would call a low hazard. Mainly residential fires are our biggest concern, but as we've seen that profile change a lot in the last 5 years here in Logan. So we shoot for 15 firefighters on scene initially in a first alarm on a residential. Just to give you perspective, a medium hazard once we move there, which is when you have a high concentration of 3-story apartments and large buildings, that bumps to 28 firefighters. So it's it's pretty difficult for us to get that many firefighters, even with our mutual aid that we have. So that's something to be thinking as the city grows, because that's a lot of firefighters. And hey, how does Logan do? NFPA survey along that goes with this. Typically, cities over 25,000 people that have career fire departments. Their most average between 1.54 to 1.81 firefighters per 1,000 residents. So as Logan moves from 55,000 people to projected to be, I think, 58,000 this year, I think from some of the census things I looked at, there's things for us to be looking at and planning moving forward. So just to keep that on the radar as we grow, that growth does come with some big concerns. And then watch outs to me, that's just being responsible in running the fire department, but monitoring trends in reimbursement for EMS. Obviously, we had a really good one starting last July, so that was a positive thing. Legislature always is, creating new laws. We'll have to watch how they handle licensure in the future for ambulances and things. We'll monitor that. And obviously, we're super grateful for everything the council and the city and finance has done in a tough year for the raises, but it is very difficult to stay competitive with the big cities down south. So we have to keep our eye on that, and we'll just do what we have to do there. And then also maybe look at additional revenue streams for fire department fundings. There's some ideas out there that have been shared with us that moving forward that we can hopefully work with finance and look at other options, because we realize just going to taxes all the time is just not, people don't like that, so we understand that. So yeah, so with that, I thank you. If there's any questions, Greg, we certainly are proud to serve the community here, and we're super grateful for our citizens, the council, mayor, and support staff. So thank you very much. Any questions for me? Sorry, I went over my 10. I heard my alarm. I'm sorry.
Anybody have any questions in particular? I'm just waiting over here.
Very secret.
No, I have a question about something that's labeled mayor,
No.
so.
Oh, okay.
Part of it's special departmental
Special
supplies.
Yeah.
I never
You generate
liked
$100,000
when
with the
that was
calendar.
just a big broad category, so I asked them to outline. Is that why
Okay,
that
is
is?
that what
The
that-
mayor just wanted to know that amount.
On page
So on page
43.
43, Amy's looking at, again,
didn't
under
understand.
fire, it's under, I think I need a new prescription for my glasses. It's 431.
Yeah, in those two boxes, I didn't quite get what that.
It's just the
Just
detail.
Okay, extra detail.
Because again,
Okay, thank you.
they used to be kind of all lumped together. It's like, what is that big sum for? And again, that was one of my pet peeves on special department supplies.
They're off on another tangent over here.
Well, I'll just think
Thanks, you
there's
can
any
say that.
questions.
Any questions for
Okay.
Nate? Well, thank you
Thanks,
Okay,
Chief.
thank you.
very much. Mike, you're up next.
Oh, it makes me a little nervous when you say something like that. Are you on the agenda next?
Oh,
Other Mike.
Mike, it's your turn.
So the same thing on that. That was just
he's first, Mike, you're second, Mike.
Okay.
Residents to buy this year. You know, I gotta follow guys that are heroes and people build parks.
Just like, you just want extra eyes on it. Okay.
We just tell people no.
No, just tell people no.
That's okay. Okay. Redevelopment, here we are.
Everybody has really nice graphics on their first slide. It's just, lots of
pretty
green
picture.
trees and, yeah.
It's pretty photoshopped, though, let's be honest.
And Mike, you're looking quite handsome tonight with your attire.
Don't you feel that way a little bit, though?
Talking about.
Someone put that clarity slider.
You don't have a short sleeve
You don't have
Hawaiian
a
shirt,
Hawaiian
so.
shirt on.
It's in there. No tie. Okay, our proposed budget, we'll just give you the numbers. 2.5 million, CDBG is about 560,000, and I'll talk a little bit later about that number for certain. Got 15 FTEs and three part-time employees. We're broken out into different divisions. Our admin division, there's two of us in this. This is how we're funded. And then really it's people that support our department, myself, our receptionist, part-timers are funded through this, and then our special event coordinator. The one change in our budget is moving the public art budget from the mayor's budget to the community development budget. I think it's $15,000.
Yep.
Public art.
Building safety, we've got 5 employees, so 4 on the ground, people that are out looking at buildings, looking at plans, and then 1 in the office. And we do quite a few permits. It's slowed down a little bit over the last year, and I think partially that's a reflection of sales tax. People aren't buying as much material, prices are up, it's hard to get labor.
It's Rich's fault.
Labor improvement, you all deal with Aaron, 5 employees there.
Deal with Aaron.
They deal a lot, code enforcement, business licensing, special events, neighborhood stuff, public art. So they get a wide gamut of things, and it's just one of those hard things that a city has to do is to enforce codes. It just takes time, there's process, due process, people are entitled to the law.
Why is the special events coordinator someplace else?
She's funded in my division, but she works here. So when we created that position, we actually eliminated the full-time person we had working the counter. So that used to be a full-time position. We slid that position over to do special events and help back up the counter and kind of coordinate that. So it's just
Okay,
where they're funded.
okay.
Yeah.
Planning, got 2 employees. Amy's our newest employee. In fact, she's a year today. And the big project we have going on is we're finishing up Wilson plan and working on the Logan general plan.
General plan.
Then our CDG program. So we're anticipating about 560,000. That's what our allotment is this year, give or take. The issue with community development block grant is in President Trump's budget, it's zeroed out. We don't know what Congress is going to do yet. So worst case scenario is we may have no money in this coming fiscal year, which is going to be challenging for us because I have one employee that's funded out of that. That's Amanda. So she does CDBG, but she also does the back end of the planning stuff. So anything you do a public notice, application intake, things like that. So we'll just have to, Rich and I have talked a little bit about this. We've got some part-time money. We may just have to use that. fund her salary and benefits until we figure out what's going to happen with CDBG. So it's just, this will come back to you again Tuesday for the approval of the annual action plan. And we'll write the agreements in a way that just says that, you know, it's predicated based on budget.
If we don't have any money, we don't do it. Yeah.
And with that, happy to answer any questions.
It's too bad.
It's a really happy note to end on there.
Yeah. Should have done that first. Yeah.
Really?
That is reality.
So what is the timeline for the general plan with the consultant?
They are posting the last workshop summary probably this week.
Okay,
We should get a existing conditions document coming out fairly soon. I think it's ready to go as well. But we're on track to they'll start pumping out portions of it, elements of it that will start circulating for review.
okay,
So we're on track to be done by, I think, early spring. I think that's where our contract is
Okay.
set for. Yeah.
okay.
And where is the cost for that in the budget?
That cost is housed in our admin P&T, professional and technical.
Okay, that's the 10K.
We've got $50,000 state grant that's reimbursable once we're done, and then we will set aside about $250,000, I think. We'll ask Rich to ask you guys to carry it forward, so we keep carrying forward and spend it.
So it's in the current year budget.
Yeah, that 235.
Okay.
So we have another project that's wrapping up with grant funded too. It's the historic district reconnaissance level survey. They should be done with that in June. That was partially state grant funded. And then that will work its way through HPC to PC and then on to you folks. We're proposing to modify the boundaries a little bit to kind of clean up the edges. And then we'll have to have a harder discussion about, do we amend the district to include more area around it that's got some historic resources. So that's coming up in a few months.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Mike.
That was easy, Mike.
Not bad.
Okay, are there any general questions that you have regarding these presentations in this portion of the budget?
None for me.
Okay, then I will receive a motion to adjourn to Logan Redevelopment Agency.
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will reconvene as the Logan Redevelopment Agency. And we will receive a budget workshop presentation from Kirk.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
You only get 5 minutes.
How come you only get 5 minutes and everybody else had 10?
He's efficient.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. But we got a good budgetary story this year.
That's right. Got
So
some money in
We
this
have
year.
income instead of.
there you go. We do. So we've gone from lean times in terms of our fund reserve to, I wouldn't say robust, but
Not flush,
we've
but,
got some modest liquidity, so that's good. So 2 buildings that the RDA owned were sold this year, the first being the one on the left, Plaza 45 building. Of course, that's next to the Carol and Jim Lobb Plaza. We spent years redoing the exterior and doing some structural work, and so that's been sold finally. Developers actively repurposing that, so we're excited to see what that adds to the downtown fabric.
so we have not sold the building next to that yet. Is that correct? Or was that?
Both of those, so they sit on the same real estate parcel,
Okay.
so they were sold as a package.
package.
Yep, as a package.
So, side note, I heard today that someone is opening a bookstore downtown. An honest to goodness, walk in the door bookstore.
That's good news, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Wow.
It'll be next, between the coffee shops
Yes.
and the old
Yeah.
Fred's Flower Building.
I think, it's the Fred's Flower Building? It's not?
That's what they bought.
Okay.
That's what I heard. So, anyway, sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
exciting.
like a real neighborhood bookshop. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So So we expect the building obviously to add that energy. I mean, Lob Plaza's been great, Center Street's been great, but this will just add to that. So, and then, you know, the positive again being that the RDA receives an influx of funds, which we needed. On the right is the second property that's sold this year, just in April, 46 North 100 West, where Jump the Moon is located. And so, yeah, things are looking a little differently. We've got some fund reserve to work with now. We also have, it's worth pointing out, about $2 million, well, I shouldn't say dollars, but we've got roughly real estate investments or holdings valued at about $2.2 million. So that's aside from fund reserve, which is just about $2.2 million as well. So effectively double that when you add the valuation of those properties that the RDA holds.
Are those on 300, like between 3rd and 4th on Main Street? There's some of those there?
300 North Main, the northwest corner of that intersection.
Okay.
The RDA owns about 4 parcels there.
Okay.
And then there's some small parcels combined with some city parcels at the southwest intersection of 3rd South,
Yeah.
which is now just, you know, grass and trees. So.
And we used some low-income housing money for that, did we?
We did.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, I think it's about 115,000, right around there.
Yeah, but it wasn't very expensive when we bought it either.
What's that?
It wasn't that expensive when we bought it either.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
The majority of the value of the overall is low-income housing.
okay.
Right. Okay, looking at the budget for 2026, on the revenue side, most of it coming from property tax or tax increment. There's also some fund reserve that's being deployed that's added into the budget. So total budget on the revenue side, $377,000. And again, that property tax revenue comes from 2 active project areas. Active meaning it's still receiving that revenue, you know, for a finite number of years. The 2 project areas that we have that are active, one is the Auto Mall, and the other the South Main River, where Adams Wealth Advisors is, and the Riverwoods expansion north of the river. We've got another one in 2026 that will trigger, meaning that it will go onto the tax rolls, and so the following spring in 2027, it won't impact this budget year, but just to give you a heads up, we'll start collecting revenue and have some associated expenses the following fiscal year. So.
For the
Cash
14
Valley Marketplace.
The
at
400
mall.
north?
The mall
400.
redevelopment.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But nothing on it, is that property more valuable now than it was before? Is my question.
Is what?
Is it more valuable now than it was before, now that there's nothing there?
Right now at this moment? Well,
I'm just curious. I know, I'm like, I'm
really,
curious.
I did talk to the assessor back
Yeah.
when, and I mean, the lion's share, almost all of the valuation on that property was the real estate.
The property, yeah. So that's why I was curious. It's like, it might actually be worth more
Like, I
now.
think they valued the building at about $350,000 or something like that. It was
Costs more than that
to-
to demo.
totally changed.
Yeah, costs about as much to demolish it
More.
as
Wow.
was worth. Yeah.
Key budget items on the expense side are just development agreement obligations that we have in each of the 2 active RDAs. And that's what I have for you. But if you have questions, fire away.
So, look, going forward, do we have opportunities for new RDAs? Do we have other types of structures that look kind of like RDAs that are allowed for us to do targeted development in certain areas?
Well, certainly we've got our eye on 300 North Main Street, just across the street from here.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
We would create an RDA based on that whole, would that encompass, say, all the way to Smith's and that whole area? Would you generally do it that large? Would you just restrict it to those, the empty parcel on 4th North and Main and the one across the street?
You know, it really depends on, excuse me, where there's some development momentum, where there's some interest, where you've got a group that's looking to assemble properties, that's actively talking about it. In this day and age with redevelopment areas, back in the day, years back, you could cast a broad net from a geography perspective and capture all the tax increment within it and accomplish what you can. Tax entities now are, they want to see more dialed in focus where, you know, they don't want to lose tax increment on properties where something might not happen.
So is there any opportunity for us to do any kind of redevelopment in, say, a residential area? If we decided we wanted to, you know, do some impact in the historic district for just throwing something out.
Sure.
And could you establish an RDA to accomplish whatever it is you decide you want to accomplish in an area like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Kind of like the Smith Group's doing down Salt Lake. So.
But
We did have
typically
a
you have to have
project
some
area, a
interest.
little different than what you're describing, but out on, 1800 North, I guess it wasn't technically a project area, but we did participate through the RDA with some infrastructure out in a residential area where we were encouraging more single-family residences as opposed to just more and more apartments.
Right, we did that with Quail.
Quail Jones.
Well,
Yeah.
Roger Jones and Duke, right there, property. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we could do it. So we're always actively looking at opportunities, talking to people. I'd say the most active possibility right now would be the 300 North Main site. We've had a lot of dialogue over several years, but we're just not to a point where we've got substance to bring forward, right? So, and then the South Main River, another one of our existing project areas. While it's an existing as opposed to a new area, certainly there's opportunities within the boundaries of that project area where redevelopment could occur.
Right,
So,
well, they already have an approved project for the housing component of the Adams Wealth Management
They do.
property.
Right.
But they haven't made any,
Pulled a permit, but haven't started it.
they did pull a permit?
As far as I know, I'm quite sure Mike's gone. He could confirm that probably.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that they pulled a permit yet. I know
Could
they've
be
been
wrong.
planning.
They have a
commission.
design review permit at least, we know that.
Yeah, but that's only good for a year.
Not a building permit,
Yeah.
I don't think.
So,
So, and they will be building, you know, a path, a concrete path. If you've been down there, you've noticed the one
Nice.
between Main Street and First West. So part of our development agreement with them is to build a similar path extending westward from 100 West on the full perimeter of their property, on the full river edge of their property.
right,
So,
right.
You were going to say something, Rich. What were you going to say?
No, I was just answering Jeannie's question. They are difficult. There are some nuances that we could employ in order to benefit residential, but it would take some, not creativity exactly, but we'd need some low-income dollars really to make it worthwhile. Housing just doesn't generate.
Oh, I know it doesn't generate, I'm just trying to, you know, envision a possibility to enhance a neighborhood in some way or another through that methodology.
We'd probably need to recover some of those low-income dollars we have in other properties in order to do something big, but smaller things.
Okay, okay. Does anybody else besides me have questions?
Good questions, Jean. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thanks to you.
And
Appreciate your support.
at that, we are adjourned.